In dripping rainwater, a gargoyle comes to life. Flying through the night skies on a stormy night, it perches itself outside of a window, peeking in on a woman with a green glowing ball that forms into Darklands. Speaking of, welcome to Darklands! Taking place in 15th century Germany, a land where bandits attack Amazon Prime delivery men for a misdelivered package, creatures attack innocent travelers for no discernible reason whatsoever, and witches and Knight Templars practice devil worshipping. Germany is a land ripe with trouble, but there are chances to be had for those with the courage to stand up to whatever it is that troubles the land. Your party is one such group. Before you can adventure through the Holy Roman Empire, however, you'll need to take a boatload of ADHD medication because Darklands is a very slow game, but more importantly than that, you'll need a party to experience the world of the time, and your party is made up of characters that you must create yourself. The Quick Start party starts off far too old to be adventurers, with the youngest character being no less than 35 years old. In Darklands, there are no classes. Instead, everything functions from attributes and skills, and you have to choose your character's family background, where you are given a specific number of points to invest into those attributes as you see fit, and afterwards, you choose your character's career paths, which will advance their age by 5 years each, as well as giving minor additions and subtractions to certain attributes, while all of your skills will increase with 1 or 2 jobs giving the virtue skill a decrease. As you've no doubt figured out, older characters will start off with higher skill levels but lower attribute scores, while younger characters start off with higher attribute scores but lower skill levels. Honestly, I say go with younger characters because at 70 years of age, your characters aren't going to be able to fight that well. Another thing that each career path gives you is different equipment depending on what career path you chose and your weapon skill levels. The weapon any character starts the game with will be whichever weapon skill that character has the highest skill level in. So if you have a character with an edged weapon skill of, say, 15 and a polearms weapon skill at 14, then that particular character will begin the game with a short sword and not a short spear. Certain careers will give that character a suit of armor, while certain other careers, namely alchemists and priests, will start off with a weapon and either an alchemical formula or the lore of a Christian saint, but no armor to speak of. However, that's no problem. You can have one of the characters that you created put into the party, then have Gretchen from the Quick Start party put into the second slot, then swipe Gretchen's equipment, remove her from the party, then add Gretchen back into the party, where she will have somehow acquired the same equipment you swiped from her previously. So swipe it again, and do this until you have at least 4 suits of Gretchen's armor, and if you'd like, you can also do the same with the other Quick Start character's equipment. Not only will your characters be able to stay out in the city streets or on the world map for longer without having to rest, you can also have quite a bit of money to start out with too, as you can sell the excess equipment to afford other supplies for your journey, things that you'll need. Is it cheating? Maybe. However, considering that after all this time, this trick is still doable, I suspect that it's working as intended. Once you've gotten your party up and ready to go, they will be plopped down into a random city somewhere in the game world, and it's different every single time you start up a new playthrough of Darklands. Regardless of which city you start in, however, the same opening scene plays out through text. Your party swears a blood oath to do good and to avoid evil, and to bring everlasting honor and glory to their names. Afterwards, they decide on what would be the best way to achieve that goal, and this is where the party basically gives the player some not so subtle hints about what they can do in the cities scattered all throughout Darklands. Fight bandits out late at night, which is illegal, but it is how you'll build up your weapon skills, money, and local reputation early in the game. Another says hire some trainers to raise your skill levels until your money runs low. Another says that you should listen for rumors in the inn, and another complains that he or she doesn't like the thought of traveling in the countryside without good equipment. After that, Darklands pretty much throws a baby into the deep end of a swimming pool without so much as a floaty to buoy yourself on. However, since this is an RPG from the 1990s, there is only one tried and true way to begin your adventure in Darklands, and that is by doing the one thing that nobody ever truly wants to do in an RPG: grind. Yes, you will spend some time grinding in Darklands, and it's something of a constant presence throughout the game, although later on, it'll be for a different reason somewhat than what it is at the beginning of the game. At the start of Darklands, you'll be grinding on bandits at night in whatever random city that the game decided to plop you down into for all three of the following: weapon skills, money, and local reputation. Weapon skills are for the obvious reasons. The higher your character's weapon skill with whatever weapon they're currently wielding will enable them to fight better, and not just in doing more damage and more often to your opponents, but also in reducing the damage you take as well. Money is so that you can afford more and better equipment. While the 25 quality weapons that your party starts with can carry you throughout the game, that armor that you swiped from Gretchen, the 25 quality plate mail and chain mail aren't going to be of much help later on, so you'll need to save up your money and buy some better gear. Local reputation determines what the populace of any given city you're in at the time thinks of you. The higher your party's local reputation, the more likely the populace will make time for you. But if your party's local reputation in a city gets too low, then you'll become wanted fugitives, and the city guards will arrest you. And good luck getting out of prison, especially in the early game. However, later on in the game, after your characters have developed their weapon skills up to at least 65, maybe learned some Saints lore, you've gotten better equipment than what you started out with, you can finally start adventuring out into the wider world of Darklands. It's quite large, and while your party moves, time passes. Basically, if your party isn't moving, then time doesn't move either. Having said that, it's quite difficult to progress through a video game without doing any moving, so you'll travel around Germany, and every once in a while, or maybe even every 3 steps, you'll have a random encounter, and this could be one of several different things. You could encounter merchant caravans, bandits hiding in ambush, greedy priests and bishops, wolves, dragons, the wild hunt, anything is possible. One thing about certain skills going up in levels, sometimes the number of levels a skill will go up by will be anywhere between 1 and 5, depending on difficulty level. The higher the skill level, the less likely it is to increase in level after a certain point. But something about seeing those random level ups with skills is quite cathartic. To me, it's kind of like a lava lamp. Whenever you encounter any given problem in Darklands, a picture will come up, overlaid with text, and you'll often have several different options on how to approach a said problem. There's violence, of course, and that is what most encounters will boil down to if you fail a skill check, but oftentimes You can talk your way out of a problem. You can pray to a Christian saint if they have a history of dealing with that sort of problem and your virtue skill is high enough. You can use an alchemical potion if you have the right kind on hand. You can try to run away. You can hide from some and sneak away from others. And this honestly makes me think of games like Wasteland and Fallout. Games where violence isn't always the solution and is often not the best way to solve a problem. It's worth noting that although Darklands is a fantasy RPG, it's not quite as fantasy as you might think. Yes, there are certain fantasy elements, like the aforementioned dragons, but you also have a world where alchemy actually works. You can summon Christian saints to help you get out of a sticky situation. Witches who, at their high sabbat, can fly around on brooms. However, there are no spells for the player characters to cast, with alchemy instead taking its place. It's Germany, seen through the lens of religion, superstition, and beliefs as they were at that particular time in human history. You're not just adventuring around in some fantasy-created world filled with magic this time, something several games out there prefer to do, and while there's nothing wrong with that, it's sometimes interesting to see our world filled with magic and the like. To be perfectly honest, I would like to see more open-world RPGs take place in the real world in the same sort of scope as Darklands did it back then. Makes it feel like a real-world Dungeons & Dragons campaign, at least to me. Returning to the gameplay, once you've done a bit in Darklands, grinded up weapon skills and obtained better equipment, you can eventually do quests for townspeople, and this is how you build up your fame score, which I would honestly say is the game's main focus. Watching your characters go from unknown youngsters with bright eyes and big dreams into these legendary heroes who have done what no other man nor woman alive has accomplished, from saving a small hamlet from Rowbritters to helping large cities get rid of those same Rowbritters, to slaying a dragon rampaging through a countryside, to stopping the apocalypse. There's just something cathartic about it, just like watching your character's skill levels jump up from 1 to 5 points at a time. Oh yeah, by the way, I don't know if it's the Steam version of the game I'm playing or what, but Baphomet sound is completely scuffed in this version, and I think we should all experience it together.
My plan is undone. The stench of blood makes sick the heavens. Ghosts glut.
Jesus H. Christ on the cross! I know evil is hammy, but I never expected it to sound like a miniature version of, like, the big evil of the world. Oh my god. Whenever it comes time to solve the problems of the mines where knocker attacks are happening, or you have to defeat a Rowbritter, or you're infiltrating the Templars HQ or the Citadel of the Apocalypse, you enter into a sort of dungeon crawler segment in an isometric sort of view. Here, you play Darklands as though it were, say, Icewind Dale or Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, and you give orders to each character and have them move around on a map. In certain dungeons like the Caves or the Templars HQ, as you travel around the map, once you reach a certain point, you will have one of the event screens pop up and you can make decisions. Although with most of these, it's mostly a choose the right option and you can progress. Choose the wrong option, and you might be here for a good little while. If you should get into a battle in these sorts of maps, then your party is forced to travel individually, and you then treat it like you would a battle out in the overworld or in a city at night when you're grinding against the bandits of the city you're in at the time. However, afterwards, assuming that you do win the fight, you will stay on the map and resume traveling through it, although you will have to reissue the orders of how your characters travel. In Darklands, you can craft potions, provided you have the recipe to said potion, but honestly, you could almost certainly get by with just Essence of Grace and Iron Arm potions, but I would also carry around several Deadly Blade potions, Great Power potions, Hard Armor potions, all purchased from the town alchemist for at least 2 reasons. 1, to make potions, not only do you need the recipe for the potion you want to make, you also need the ingredients, and they get shoveled around every time you start a new game, and I've also heard that they get shuffled around towns from time to time in the same playthrough. The bigger the city, the more ingredients they're likely to sell, but when I was trying to make Essence of Grace potions in my latest playthrough, there was just one ingredient that I just could not find for love nor money, and that ingredient was gum. After searching several cities in the hopes that they would sell me some gum to make the damn potions, I eventually just threw my hands up, said screw this, and decided to sell off all my alchemy ingredients and just buy the potions straight from an alchemist. While this will always net you the lowest quality of potions, at least they don't shuffle around every so often. No, the alchemist will just throw you out of his shop on a whim for no good reason, other than, you're ignorant, like he's the South Park version of Michael Jackson. Reason number 2 for why I don't make my own potions in Darklands. When you're making potions in a city, or even out in the wilderness, you can fail and wind up destroying the inn your party is staying in, and you'll have to pay for repairs. If you can't or don't, then your party becomes wanted criminals in that city, and you'll have to escape or deal with being in a jail cell. You can get out of prison, but I would say just pray your way out. Otherwise, it's the chopping block for you, and your shoulders will be missing a head. Long story short, don't pay what you owe, and they will teach you the meaning of the phrase, heads are gonna roll. In Darklands, your character's endurance and strength stats make up their carry weight, which determines how many attacks that character can make back-to-back in combat, but they are also your character's HP stats. Yeah, that's right, Darklands actually gives your characters 2 HP stats to watch out for. If a character's endurance stat drops to 0 in a fight, then that character gets knocked unconscious and stays that way until the fight is over. They will come back after the fight is over. However, if a character's strength stat drops to 0, then that character dies and they must be replaced. There are no ways to bring a dead character back to life in Darklands. Once they're dead, that's it. They are gone for good, and they must be replaced at an inn. Or you can reload a save from before that character's death. Story? What story? This game has a story. No, it doesn't. But to be honest, at least in my opinion, the story of Darklands is what you do in the game instead. You have a main objective, yes, stop the end of the world by confronting the demon who the witches and Templars worship, but you never have to go and do those things, ever. You can ignore them completely, in fact. More than anything, I think Darklands is best described as a game where the player defines the story. It may as well be that way, because the game never really attempts to tell a story anyway. Honestly, however, Darklands taught me something, albeit unintentionally, and that is, we all die one day, right? We're all gonna die, we all meet the same end, and then who knows what comes next. So, if we're all heading to the same end anyway, then why not try and lead interesting lives? Why not try and do things that will make a difference in the world? That way, even after your death, you won't be just some random footnote in history's annals. You'll at least be an interesting footnote in history's annals, if not an entire history book based on what you did in life. But I don't know. Maybe the game teaches none of that, and I'm just reading far too deeply into the game. At this point, folks, I don't really think there's too much else that I can say about Darklands. I love this game. I play it once every year or two, and whenever I do start playing the game, I just don't want to stop playing for the longest time. I mean, when I was capturing footage for one part of this game, I literally captured no less than 4 hours worth of footage in a single sitting. And that's something that I normally never do. Even in other video games that I love that aren't quite as repetitive as Darklands is, and yes, that does include other RPGs that I love, Darklands is one of those games that I could play for what feels like maybe 15 to 20 minutes. It was early morning outside, but by the time those 15 to 20 minutes are over with, I look outside again and I see that it's now evening and it's time for my parents to come home from work, assuming, of course, that they haven't already made it home from work. For as repetitive and unfinished as Darklands is, I love it, and I can definitely see that while any and all plans for expansions and sequels were dropped due to the game getting a reputation for being buggy and unfinished and nearly bankrupting micropros, I love this game, and I can see that other people loved it too, because Darklands' DNA lives on in games like the Elder Scrolls games, the Fallout games, the Wasteland games, just to name a few game series off the top of my head. Overall, my playtime to beat Darklands took about 13 to 14 hours or so, give or take. Honestly, Darklands, being as cheap as it is, and as easy to run nowadays as it is, I highly recommend it. But only to those who play RPGs to watch their characters' numbers get ever higher. If you're looking for a game that tries to tell a story and has a load of character development in it, then I'm sorry, but you won't find it here. Long story short, I absolutely recommend Darklands, but that recommendation has an asterisk hanging over it, and a very big asterisk at that. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have to go and start recording footage for my next review on this channel, so stay tuned for more content to come. I'll see you in the next video, and bye-bye for now.